We all know that business is built on relationships. Like at the end, I always say, every book I've read, every keynote speaker I've listened to, every gimmick, every strategy, every webinar, they can be teaching you all these great approaches. And then at the end, it's almost like they whisper, but it's really all about relationships, right? How many times have you heard that? Here's a great script. Here's a great dialogue. Go do this. Go say this. Go write this email. Go post this on social media. But remember, it's all about relationships.
Welcome to Great Practice, Great Life by Atticus Incorporated. What if you could hang out with successful small and solo law firm attorneys, ask them about their successes and failures, their business strategies and mindset habits, then take an insight or two to guide your own growth in your practice? Each week, Steve Riley shares an in-depth look at how to work less while maintaining high client service standards, reduce your stress levels while growing your income, and find time to make changes when you are time-starved. Steve is a lawyer coach for more than 20 years and a former trial attorney. His goal is to provide strategies to help you balance your lives and grow your practice. Now, here's Steve.
Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of Great Practice, Great Life. One of the challenges that all of our members have is how do they find better clients, get more referrals, and really focus as a relationship-based growth strategy in your practice. It's low-hanging fruit, it's cost-effective. And if you're a lawyer and you're trying to grow the practice, this is one of the easiest ways to do it. Referrals can be everything. Now, the challenge that we have is learning how to do it well, like a business skill. You may be a great lawyer, but you may not be a great marketer when it comes to getting your referral practice up. Today I brought in an expert on referral-driven sales, Barb Betts. So Barb, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here, Steve. Thank you for having me. Super excited about today's conversation.
Well, I am thrilled to have you here. And it's something that you and I were talking about off show. So let me just ask you a few questions. When you coach or advise someone from a marketing perspective or sales perspective, why do you have such an intentional thought process around referral-based marketing?
So, my background comes from almost 23 years in sales. And I came from an industry that was very transactional, very cold. And when I got into that industry, I didn't get into the industry to get into sales, but you quickly realize that you're in sales. And I didn't like how I was having to do it. I didn't like how I was being trained. And I didn't like this feeling of being a sleazy or slimy salesperson, that adage that's given to salespeople. So I just knew there had to be a better way. And then as I started building relationships, generating referrals, I realized that it's a far more productive, positive, workplace happiness, definitely more profitable way of doing business. And so as I poured myself more into doing that and realized I didn't have to do any of the traditional transactional ways of generating business that were common to my industry, it was one of those things where it was like, why wouldn't I do business this way? So when I got that deep down passion and power was really in identifying how it changed my life and how it changed my business.
Fantastic, fantastic. So you work with a lot of lawyers. In fact, one of your lawyer friends was trying to encourage you to law school, and I was trying to talk you out of it. Like, forget it. Stay focused on what you're doing right now, which is helping people like us become better at referrals. What do you think the biggest challenges lawyers have in building a referral process or referral network?
So you know what I think it is? I think it's the same for every business owner. They don't understand the power of them. They know that they like getting them, but they don't understand that they can actually make a business out of them. They don't understand that if they actually put effort and intention and what I like to call a system behind them, that they actually can rely on them. What I find most business owners struggle with is I find that and you're the attorneys and practitioners that listen to this might think the same thing. They think, oh, I already do business that way. I already get referrals. And they probably do. When I talk to salespeople and I ask them, how do you get your business? The number one way I hear is, oh, by referral. The next question I ask them every single time is, how did you get those referrals? And every single time they say to me, well, people just call me. And that's fantastic. But that is a word of mouth business. That means you were good at what you did when you did it. And congratulations, you should be good at what you do. And people are talking about you, and that's a good thing. But that's not something you can rely on. Where working by relationship and applying a systematic process to building those relationships is a way that you can rely on that repeat referral and retention business to come in the door. You can actually create a business plan around it instead of just being excited every time someone calls you.
From your perspective, what strategy would you recommend for someone who wants to go to the next level beyond just word of mouth?
Yeah, well, it's all about having a system. It's all about having a system. It's all about having something that is actually part of your lead generation strategy. I think something that I can imagine attorneys get caught up in is you're so caught up in actually serving the client. You're so caught up in handling the case or handling the contract or whatever type of law you practice that you forget you're a salesperson and you forget you have to lead generate. And that is where I see almost every business struggle. Now, if you're in more of the transactional type, door-to-door type, selling a product, you know that you have to hit the quotas, you have to make the calls, you have to do all the things. But what I find in the industry that I came from, and obviously the legal industry, is when you're in more of that consumer-facing industry where you just need humans to do business with you, you forget that you have to lead generate. And so it all comes down to having a system, which is why I've built out an entire framework that I have taught thousands upon thousands upon thousands of business owners to do. And then it comes down to being intentional about it, doing it consistently, doing it well. And once you deepen those relationships, you'll watch the business come through the door.
Fantastic. Can you walk us through that framework?
Yeah. So, one of the things that I teach, and this is kind of one of the mantras I have when I speak and on stage, is I tell people, and every attorney listening to this probably knows this, we all know that business is built on relationships. Like at the end, I always say, every book I've read, every keynote speaker I've listened to, every gimmick, every strategy, every webinar, they can be teaching you all these great approaches. And then at the end, it's almost like they whisper, but it's really all about relationships, right? How many times have you heard that?
Yeah.
Here's a great script.
Yeah.
Here's a great dialogue. Go do this. Go say this. Go write this email. Go post this on social media. But remember, it's all about relationships. And so what I tell my audiences is, I'm not telling you something you don't know. I don't talk to an audience like I know something you don't know, because you do know it's all about relationships. The issue is no one's teaching you how to build them. Like no one's teaching you how to actually put a system behind them. So my framework is build, because we've got to build them. They don't come overnight. This is not a quick fix. I promise you, if you apply this system and you go out right now and you start doing this, you are not going to get a referral tomorrow. I mean, you might, but this is a long game. But this is how you end up growing your business in such a way that you can slowly stop doing those other lead generation activities you were doing or putting money into the cold strategies. And so build is be authentically you, because it all starts with us. Then we have to take that focus outward and we have to actually understand them, understand the people that you're doing business with, understand your clients, and understand the people that you want to attract to your business. The I is we have to invest with intention. And that's where we get real meaty and we workshop and we really go deep on how do we intentionally invest in these relationships. The L is leverage moments, because moments are happening every single day that you can be leveraging with your clients. And then the D is deliver extraordinary value, because every single person listening to this podcast knows it doesn't matter how much someone likes you. If you're not good at what you do, they're not going to tell anybody about you. So the D is probably the most important. It happens at the end. It's like the footnote. It's like the reminder, but it's that reminder that you have to be so good they can't forget you.
There's a lot there.
It can be an entire series of, podcasts and trainings for sure.
Yes, there's a lot there. So I got two things that jumped to my mind that I just want to ask you to kind of elaborate a little bit on. let's go back to deliver extraordinary value, or just delivering any value. The two issues that I see a lot with law practices is one is that the lawyer believes that they're the sole purpose and the sole channel by which that great value is being delivered. And I've noticed really how narrow-minded they are there, because the challenge is actually having a great team that helps you deliver. And a lot of the mistakes that lawyers have are really basic customer service mistakes. Like the number one complaint that still for 25 years, the number one complaint that bar associations deal with lawyers where they get a grievance is unreturned phone calls or unresponded to emails now, because no one's responding to the phone call. They're not communicating. They're not being responsive. So delivering extraordinary value, I think sometimes is a very low threshold. And sometimes it shows up in just basic customer service. What's been your experience coaching and advising people just on that deliver side? Like, what's a low-hanging fruit thing that you're like, you know what, if you would just answer the phone, or if you would just do this, what would be something that you could give our members, like, look, this is a low-hanging fruit, grab this, go do this.
Yeah, well, I love that. I actually back up to, as you were saying that, you were getting me excited. And if you're watching this on video, you're going to see I started bouncing around because I was getting excited because I'm so passionate about this. Because you're correct. When I come in and actually train companies and talk to teams, usually what happens is someone hears me, someone, the CEO hears me, the president hears me, and they're like, dang, our entire team needs to hear this because of exactly what you just said. That deliver extraordinary value, and frankly, the entire framework has to be done by everyone on the team, because I have a very passionate mantra in life. Anybody who touches the client is in the relationship building business, period. Every single person, from your person that answers the phone or calls someone back, to your paralegals, to your admin staff, to your accounting staff. Anybody who touches the client must be in the relationship building business. They have to know how to do all of this too. But specifically to your question of how can you just do those little extras? It's implementing the entire framework, but I really think it's what you said. It's all communication. And at the end of the day, remembering you're in the human to human business. And that person on the other side of the phone, on the other side of the email, on the other side of the table is a human. And if you would just take a moment really to acknowledge and communicate in a different way, rather than, for example, rather than just answering the email, start it out with a friendly line. Rather than just calling them back to tell them what you need to tell them, the case update, the trial scheduled, whatever it may be, start with a, hey, how are you doing today? How was your weekend? Did you do anything fun? Turn every interaction you have into a personal conversation first before you get to the transactional, and you'll watch your business change. Now, the fundamentals you talked about returning phone calls and returning emails within a reasonable amount of time, in my world, it was same day unless it came in later in the afternoon, and then at minimum the next day, I think are fundamental truths and principles that if you're struggling with, you absolutely have to fix, right? And I don't have any other way to fix that than just do it. But you're right, those simple acts of response and engagement are huge in building relationships, and they're huge in any business. And I don't even care if you're the most transactional person in the world, call people back. And funny enough, the industry I came from, we struggle with the exact same thing. It's the number one grievance complaint that we get in our ethics world. Number one.
Well, it's interesting because as you talk about it, it is fantastic. I mean, everything you're saying makes perfect sense to me, because the whole firm's in the relationship business. Yes. And understanding that and shifting the thinking about that's critical. A lot of lawyers will say something really basic like, well, what really matters is how smart I am and what great legal work I do. And my complaint for years with lawyers, like, well, that's great, but how can the client judge that? They can't cut open your brain. They don't understand the documents you do. They don't understand your strategy. And if you could just be semi-empathetic and provide 10% to 20% better customer service, not 100%, but 10% than your competitors, you're going to own the market over time. So I'm totally with you on it. I got another question for you, and I don't want to throw you off on this, but if you say, hey, Steve, this is let me punt on that one, that's totally fine. I think one of the biggest challenges I have and all of our practice advisors have in working with our clients is that the lawyers just say, look, I'm time starved. I have no time to do this. I have no time to do anything. How can I suddenly pivot my company to a relationship driven firm? I'm a relationship driven person. I mean, just look at me. I'm amazing. But how do I find the time to start this transformation? What would your advice be?
Oh, I love this time conversation. And it's one of my favorites. So, I
I feel
always
like I just got to tell you, Barb, I feel like I'm falling into each one of your traps step by step by step.
I
So
love it. I love it.
it's clearly you're an expert on this because I'm falling for each one.
I
So go
love
ahead.
it. I love it. Okay, so first thing I'm going to say is show me your calendar and I'll tell you where your priorities are. That's first and foremost. Okay. And I empathize with a busy attorney and a busy firm. I get that. I mean, you've got deadlines, you can't not show up for court, right? You've got a million things coming at you, and I understand, which is why I always start with busy business owners with show me your calendar, right? And let's look at what your priorities really are. And is your calendar really minute to minute, like you have something every single minute, or is that just a mindset you've told yourself? Right. And so the first thing I ask any person in sales or in business who's working with me is give me 1 hour a week. Just start out with 1 hour a week. And if you can't give 1 hour a week to lead generation, which is what building and deepening relationships is, then, I question that maybe you need more staff, you need more support, right? At the end of the day, if you can't give 1 hour a week, and then we build from there, and then we get to 3 days a week, and then we get to the world that I've built in my career, and still to this day, even in corporate keynote speaking, is 1 hour a day. Because you have to invest in the future of your business. So at the end of the day, Steve, a lot of times I think it's frankly just an excuse. It's an excuse. Because I think we all, if we really looked at our calendar, could carve out 1 hour a day to do some thoughtful engagement and lead generation. And let's face it, depending on what type of legal field you're in, how you do your business, how deep your relationships are with your clients, there's also ways to set this up systematically where your team can help you too, right? I believe in a law firm, if you have good foundational relationships with your clients, there is no reason that your admin can't help you deepen these relationships as well. Like there's other people in your team that can show up for the client and make sure the client knows that the firm, and let's just say Steve Riley, the attorney, cares about them. There's other ways to do it. So sometimes it's about taking those baby steps and not thinking I have to implement all of this overnight, because you will hear the entire system and go, oh, this girl's lost her mind. If you just implement small micro doses of what I teach, you'll start to see your business change. So like when I talk about putting an hour of lead generation on your calendar, my hour of lead generation is intentionally reaching out and thoughtfully connecting with people. There's other ways to do that. There's other ways to leverage moments. There's other ways to invest. There's other ways to show up in people's lives. So it's about making those small commitments. But if you can't put an hour a day eventually on your calendar to transform your business, and then the last thing I would add, Steve, is once you start doing this systematically, you don't have to do it as much anymore. It does start to come naturally. And you've built those relationships to a point where you don't have to do it as deep with everybody. You just have to start somewhere.
Well, this is important because a lot of new members in our community, one of the things we try and teach them is referral-based marketing. And one of the things I've got responses on is like, well, I don't need to actually talk to people because I now have an AI product that automatically emails them and asks them for a referral. And my response is, well, that's great. That's a great thing to start with. But what you're aiming for over time is a culture of relationship-based marketing. So getting the lawyer to invest 1 hour teaches everybody on the team they need to invest 1 hour. And what the priorities are as an organization is lead generation through referrals. I think it's fantastic, Barb. I think I'm going through all the different objections I get, and I created myself when I was marketing, still do marketing. What am I saying? But from the perspective of this is one small step, one small thing that you can do on a weekly basis. And you're not recommending sitting down and writing a blog. You're not recommending sitting down and deciding what color brochure you're going to have. You're
No.
recommending interacting with another human being. So I just make sure we're
Correct.
super clear on that. Okay, great.
I love the AI conversation is like my automatic pushback is remember you're in the human to human business. And at the end of the day, I've never seen a robot sign a contract or make a final decision, right? It's a human, no matter how crazy technology gets. And then, I would go back to what you said about the hour a day, support and the entire team being on board because it's about, and I'll just give you some just high level sprinkling ideas that will show you that this isn't as hard as you think it is, right? There's so many ways to leverage and deepen a relationship, especially in 2025 with the amount of resources that we have at our fingertips. So for example, when we talk about teaching the entire team to stay engaged and to stay on board and to be listening for relationship building opportunities, it's as simple as your paralegal gets on the phone to go over something with a client or the admin, and the client happens to say that they had a really rough weekend because I hate to use this example, but I would rather use this than humans, but their dog just passed away this weekend, right? What do you do with that information? Do you just say, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Oh my God, I know that feeling." Or do you hang up the phone and you send flowers? Simple. Simple. Didn't take a ton of time, doesn't take a ton of effort. But I'm going to tell you right now, if my law firm sent me flowers because my dog died and I clearly was upset about it, talk about wowing me. How about every time you have a face-to-face appointment or the firm has a face-to-face appointment, someone sends a handwritten note to the client? How many times have you gotten a handwritten note in the last 12 months? Probably not many.
Twice.
Do you know your clients' birthdays? Are you sending them handwritten birthday cards from the firm and not just ones that are signed a year in advance by everyone with a different color? Okay, we've all gotten those before. But actual thoughtful messages about someone's birthday. When is an opportunity where the attorney can simply sit down and take his or her top 20 clients, like the ones believe in you at the highest level, and just send a message and say, one of my magic statements, "Hey, Steve, I was thinking about you today. How's the business going? How did the vacation go?" Whatever you happen to know about them. Because let's face it, you know things about your clients. Those little, and this is where I want to reframe it as these are microdoses. These are not doing major big changes. But every single day, did I engage with 5 to 10 people in a thoughtful way? In my world, Steve, I hated lead generation like the plague. Lead generation is the most awful thing in the world to me. Sales calls, cold calling, oh my God, could not stand it. I would find every excuse to get out of it, which is why I reframed it into a make someone's day mindset. And I teach this, and this is how I put it on my calendar. My calendar does not say Monday, 10 a.m. lead generation calls. It says MSD messages, and that's not a drug. That's make someone's day messages. Can you just spend 1 hour, or if you don't have an hour, 5 people a day in a systematic way, which is what I teach when I workshop, to thoughtfully reach out and engage and just check in on somebody. This is where your team can grab your cell phone too, friends. There is now, maybe you don't want your team to have your cell phone, but there's other ways to do this. You can get, ghosted phone numbers. You can do so many things where your team can actually send these messages too, and then you just respond, right? You start responding in that thoughtful way. So people make it harder than it is. The bottom line is you're just not focusing on it. You're just not making it intentional. When you start focusing on it and making it intentional and doing all these little fairy dust type things that I've done in my entire career, you'll watch your firm it'll transform.
Hey, it's Steve. Sorry to interrupt this conversation with Barb, but I want to point out to you that Barb is going to be one of our keynotes at the summit this year. So the summit's November 6th and 7th, 2025 in Orlando. The new website for the summit is atticussummit.com. Now, I want to encourage you that if you haven't already registered for the summit, go ahead and take action. We've got some great speakers. Barb's one of them. And as you're listening to Barb talk about referral-based marketing, I think she's going to be incredibly powerful and impactful to their life. In addition to her, we have Dre Baldwin, and we also have Matt Immersion. So we have 3 fantastic keynote speakers. Each one's designed to help you innovate, be inspired, and take those ideas and convert them to invoices. So I'm delighted about this year's summit. The registrations are open. Now, I just want to warn you, last year the hotel sold out, the summit sold out. So if you don't register now, you may not have a seat or a room at the event hotel. So check out the show notes. I look forward to seeing you there. It's great. As I'm sitting here listening to you, a lot of lawyers would make the mistake of sitting down for an hour and saying, hey, do you have anything you can send me? What you've done is flipped it to say, hey, I'm thinking about you, and you're trying to make their day great. You're not trying to say, send me a great case. You're actually
Nope.
saying, hey, I'm thinking about you. How was vacation? How was this? How are you doing since your dog died? Whatever it may be,
Yeah.
you're flipping it to how can you make their day better versus
Yep.
how can they send you a case. I think it's an important distinction just to hang out and have everybody listen to for a minute.
It
So,
is a very important distinction. And the one thing that I know, and I think attorneys fall into this bucket, is there's so many great people in business and sales who don't ask for business. And they wonder why they don't have any. You ask for business in transactional ways, but you don't ask for business from the right people. And so another mantra that I teach is the reason you're not asking for business is you don't feel like you have permission to. You know that the last time you talked to this client was a year ago when their case wrapped up. You know in your head, I've done nothing to engage with them the last year, and I'm going to pick up the phone and call them and ask them for a case. No, you're not. And if you do, you're going to sound incredibly transactional and incredibly cold. Flip that around and think about the power of making deposits before you make any withdrawals. You guys know very well that a bank account, you can't take money from it when there's nothing in it, when there's no balance there. And so I talk about how when you make these intentional deposits, you're raising the relationship trust account. I know you all understand trust accounts.
you had everybody's attention at trust account.
You're raising that relational trust account to where you have permission to call them and say, hey, I need your help. And then ask for what you need. And I promise you, you'll ask more because you'll feel like you have permission to.
Okay, let's do it again. Because I promise you, everyone went off the rails when you said trust account. So let's do it again.
Bank account.
I promise. I promise. So you're saying, hey, look, you feel like you don't have permission, and intuitively you know this. So what you're recommending is to, over time, start making deposits, reach out, thinking about you, contribution of some form of way of, I don't say repairing the relationship, but rekindling the relationship.
Correct.
And then give me your ask again, because I really like that. That was really elegantly framed. Give it to me again.
Hey, friend, I need your help. Or, hey, client, I need your help. It's hard to say friend if you're not friends, right? I say
Right.
friend to everybody because I'm just the relationship girly, right? But like, okay, I am
I had not
super,
noticed that.
I am
Noticed that.
super close to my probate and trust attorney. And for obvious reasons. I mean, we do life together. However, our relationship wasn't always that way. I've taught her this system, and she does it to me and to others. And so if she's slow and she says, hey, friend, or hey, Barb, I need your help, with how long probate cases are taking to get through the lovely court system in Southern California, I'm finding that my life cycle of leads is taking longer to transact. Because let's face it, right? You're not getting paid, you're taking small draws, but I know how the probate system works. And so if she calls me and says, hey, I need your help, the next time you hear of someone who has a parent who's starting to age and they realize they don't have a trust in place, I'd love an introduction to them. She has every permission to call me and say that. And if you notice how I just asked for that referral, I didn't use the word referral. It's also a little secret sauce I teach. I don't teach anybody to ask for referrals. I teach you to ask for introductions and connections instead. Because I promise you, the word referral comes with a connotation that they have to be ready to transact. They have to be ready to do something. When you ask to be introduced to someone who could be a future client or someone to support your business, or you ask to be connected, I will do that all day long before anybody ever needs you. But if you ask me for a referral, I'm going to think, oh, well, they're not ready yet. They're not ready to talk to you yet. So doing it in that soft way of, I need your help, because at the end of the day, if you've poured enough into that person's life, and when we talk about deposits, it's not just, hey, how are you doing? It's also the birthday flowers you sent. It's also the sympathy card you sent when grandma passed away. It's also the follow-up that your team's done. All of that's deposits. Then you have permission to call them up and say, hey, Steve, I need your help. This is what I'm looking for. This is how you could help my business. Or the other way to spin this is when you're in those conversations and people are saying, you're reaching out and you're connecting. I can't tell you how many times in my career I've sent a message saying, "Hey, Steve, checking in on you. How's the family? How was the vacation?" You respond back, we get into conversation, and then 90% of the time, if we have that relationship, you're going to ask me how business is, or you're going to ask me how the firm's doing. You're going to ask me if I've had any exciting cases recently. That is your permission to ask for business. The second they ask you how your business is doing, that is your permission to ask for business, and you're missing that opportunity. And I know I just put like 5 tips into one conversation, so happy to unpack any of them, but this is why I get so excited about this stuff, because it works. You just have to do it.
No, I don't want you to unpack them. They can hit rewind. So I'm saying they can hit rewind. I don't want you to slow
I love it.
I don't want you to slow down to help them out. But the whole intention, the focus, everything that you're doing is just coming through so loud and so powerfully. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to ask you 2 questions and then let you run whatever direction you want. So the first question I have is, one of the challenges that we have in coaching our clients, our lawyers, we try and get them to upgrade. And one of the things I argue with them about gently is that you're doing bad customer service. You will quickly see that your good clients will downgrade the referral. They won't upgrade the referral. They won't refer up, they'll refer down. So if you're a team and you aren't doing a great job, one of the things you want to pay attention to, what's the caliber referral? The second thing is how to ask. Like you said, when they ask about business, it's totally wide open door for a referral request or some form of ask or some form. They're asking, can I help you? Is really what they're saying. So one of the things I'd like to hear your feedback on is, how do you ask for in your case, play whatever assumptions you want. How do you do a referral up ask?
So let me clarify the question. So what you're saying is, how do you get that next level client, that next level referral, grow the business bigger and stronger?
Next level introduction. When I was practicing, one of the things I was always looking for was, we had, our joke was we had people that were mist makers, rain makers, and then rain brokers. And a rain broker would be somebody that was in control of maybe like a Charles Schwab office. In my case, I did a lot of, estate planning, elder law work back in the day before I did personal injury work. I mean, I did personal injury work before, but as I look at this, how do you work your way up the food chain?
Got it. Okay. So it goes back to something that I teach. We don't have enough time to go deep into, but I teach all business owners, you have to rank your relationships. Okay. Because you can't treat everyone the same. So you have to rank your relationships. I teach a simple 5-star system. Everyone understands a 5-star system. And now you can categorize them however you want. For me, 5 stars are advocates, 4 stars are fans, 3 stars are connections, 2 stars are acquaintances, 1 star is your mailing list. Specifically to what you said, though, is when you rank these relationships, I want you to rank them on 2 criteria. And these are only criteria you can answer. There's no right or wrong answer. And oh, by the way, don't tell people what ranking they have in your database. Don't be like, well, Steve, if you give me a referral, you go from a 4 to a 5. We don't do that. Okay, that's weird. However, when you're talking about ranking your relationships, the 2 criteria I want you to use is the level of relationship you have with them combined with their ability to refer you. So what you just talked about, that Charles Schwab advisor, if they've got that next level relationships and connections that you need, you've got to put them at the top of your list when you're choosing who to call and who to engage with. So I don't think it's as much what you ask them. I think it's you understanding how to prioritize your relationships so you're engaging with the right people at the right frequency. So I teach a frequency formula of how often to engage with these people and how often they should hear from you. And those 5-star relationships, the Charles Schwab advisor, because that person's got the clients you need, they better be hearing from you all the time. That's where people miss it. They try to treat everyone in their database the same way, and you can't do that. You're not going to get anywhere because you're going to be talking to that nice, let's just call it stay-at-home mom who happened to need you for a matter that was something you do on the fringe of your firm, right? You're focusing on that relationship at the same level you're focusing on the Charles Schwab advisor, you're not going to get anywhere. That Charles Schwab advisor needs you to be more intentional, more connected, and more related to, because they're the people that have the clients for you. And from my experience, when you really start doing this the right way, you should only be focusing on the 5s and the 4s. Let your team focus on the rest. If you really start doing this the right way.
Bingo. I so love that. I so love that. If you're really going to build relationship-based business and referral-based business, you need to be super clear in your mind who are the 5 stars, who are the 4 stars, and anything below that you can delegate to team, quite frankly, and have top of mind awareness with that and teach the team.
Yeah. Well, and then it goes down to, the second pillar of my framework, which is understand them, which we could get into for hours, which is all about, do you have a way and a system for when your team hears things about people or you learn things about people, you're recording it somewhere into your CRM, which I hope you have, or your practice software or whatever you guys use. Where are you recording who these people are, what they belong to, what groups they belong to? Let's face it, in your world, if you're a firm that does high dollar stuff, what status do they have in the world, right? Are they a member of a yacht club or a country club or Charles Schwab, super high level, networks, all the things? Do you have somewhere where you actually can filter and know who and where the opportunities are in your database, right? Because you're trying to store all this stuff in your head, but at the end of the day, you're human and you're going to forget. And wouldn't you hate to all of a sudden realize that a client told you at one time they had a relationship in X area, and all of a sudden you decide to pivot your practice into X area and you forgot that person had connections for you? How are you going to remember that? You've got to record it. And if you're a big firm and you've got hundreds or thousands of clients, you're human and these relationships will drift away.
Perfect. All right. So here's my next to last question for you. Ready? There's somebody listening to this who's trying to grow their practice. And what they just heard sounded like, what I want you to do is build a 747. And they're like, oh my God, like there was so much happening. I don't know. I have to hit rewind 20 times. If there's someone who's starting this from scratch, just from scratch, and they're new to our membership, they're new to building a practice, what's the first thing you would recommend they do?
Yeah. First thing you've got to do is rank your relationships. Get them all in an Excel spreadsheet. Even if, most CRMs these days have custom fields, right? So if you can create a custom field that you put as ranking, do a drop down, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, have your assistant, your team print you out an Excel spreadsheet with every single client in the firm. And then next to it, leave a blank column for yourself and just give it your best shot. Because I promise you're going to come across names. You're like, who is that? I have no idea who that is, right? Give it your best shot. Start ranking those relationships, because you can't do any of this till you start ranking the relationships. And then once you've ranked those relationships, you go to those 5-star people and you simply create a plan, call it 5 people a day. How can I reach out and connect and just start reintroducing myself to this relationship? Because I promise you, you're going to have to reintroduce yourself to some of these relationships. And, there's all other ways you can do it, networking and parties. And, there's other education events and things that you can do depending on the type of law you practice. But if I was starting out, I tell every single business owner, you cannot do any of this until you rank those relationships. And then rip the Band-Aid off, because if they're a 5-star relationship, that means you should know them pretty well. They should be pretty close to you. They should know exactly who you are if they saw you or heard your voice. And if they heard from you, would they go, oh my gosh, Steve, so great to hear from you? If they're not going to say that, they're not a 5-star relationship. And don't be surprised if the first time you do this, if you haven't poured a lot of time into this and you haven't poured a lot into your relationships, you may not have a lot of 5 stars, and that's okay. You'll get them there, right? So go to your highest ranking people, the easiest people to reach out to, and just start connecting, just start deepening, just start leveraging that relationship, building the relationship first so that you can start leveraging it.
Fantastic. Last question. Anything else that you would like to share, encourage, or say to our members?
I think the last thing I would want to share is the one thing that is a whole nother podcast, but I think it's important to state. I started at the beginning with this. The first pillar in the framework is be authentically you, and that you can't have an authentic relationship with anyone else till you build one with yourself, till you really know who you are and what you bring to the world. And I think what too often business owners do is they shift themselves to fit into the person they're trying to connect with or who's sitting in front of them. And so I would say that if I'm saying this and it's making you get a little wheezy in your stomach and you're feeling a little like, oh no, she's going there, building that confidence within ourselves, giving yourself permission to be who you are personally and professionally is something that we all need to work on, because my journey and my story, and if you follow me online, you'll see that I've gone through some significant things in my life where I realized that I wasn't showing up as the real me. And the second I took the mask off, and the second I stopped hiding, and the second I decided to be real and not be a you know what, okay? I'm not talking about, I hate the word authenticity because people think it means just spewing everything out there and having no filter. Okay, no, that's absolutely not what I mean. But showing up as the real, authentic you will breed confidence in you that your clients will not know what to do with. They're going to be attracted to it. They're going to come to you with conviction. They're going to want to refer you. They're going to want to be around you. They're going to want to answer your phone call. So if you need to work on that person inside of you, do that first before you do any of this other work. Because if you don't show up as the real you, you can't build a real relationship with anyone else.
It sounds like you and I are going to have another podcast date in the
I
future.
would love to. I would love to, because it's my second/first/ they're tied for first favorite topic to talk about.
Fantastic. So I want to thank you. I want to thank you for being very generous with your time, generous with your strategies, generous with your thinking, and really just putting it out there in any way that you can to help our members and my friends grow a great practice and great life. So thank you. Thanks for being here, Barb. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. You are incredible. And I really appreciate you having me on and helping your members grow.
Thank you. Thanks for joining this week's episode of Great Practice, Great Life. Please tune in weekly to get the next episode. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe, like, and don't hesitate to share it with a friend who you think this episode could help. With that, thanks, and I hope you enjoy next week's episode.